I know that Christine Ludi was not gonna be here and she was trying
She
to
was
get
gonna
on.
join us remotely if she
Right,
could.
I think that was,
She's in an area where signal may or may not exist up in the mountains.
Okay, well, let's call this meeting to order.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Do we have a second?
second that motion.
No, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, roll call.
Okay. You know what? I don't have
Would that be Mr. Madrid? Do you have who they are?
Thank you. Chair Dina Minus,
Present.
Vice Chair Joseph Dominguez, Alyssa Sena, Cody Rivera,
Present.
Harold Garcia,
Present.
Councilor Benito Pacheco, Councilor Marvin Martinez,
Present.
Christine Ludi. Is she connected? Can you hear us, Christine?
There she is.
Oh, there she is.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we'll talk a little louder.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
All right. Shall we do the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag
flag
of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do we have any public input?
Madam Chair, we have no public input.
Let's go on to discussion items. Number one, we have finance report.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'm going to go into a little more detail than normal, just to try and get everybody kind of more familiar with some of the things that we're used to seeing at the budget that may be new to some of the newer members. I'm going to start with the first page in the general fund revenues. This report is through May 2026. June isn't complete until the end of the day today. And on our revenues in the general fund, you'll see that most of our gross receipts tax revenues continue to climb. And in 3 of them, we've already exceeded our revenue estimates by the end of May. So that's a great thing.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask that some of the members do not have information here present.
Do you have anything to put on the screen? I know I'm looking for mine off of my email, but as far as the reports, I think that Mr. Witters has his, right?
I have mine, but this is, I'm gonna take his data and format it differently. Cody?
I have it.
No, this is mine. I do it differently.
Oh, God. But we go off
Do
of
you want
Mr.
a copy?
Madrid's, okay?
Gotcha.
No.
All right.
No, if you like, Madam Chair, we can start providing hard copies for the meetings or in advance.
I'm good because I normally just download all of mine, but I don't know if maybe Counselor Martinez might want something in his.
I think maybe myself and Benito would be okay if we got a hard copy.
And this is what was presented to the council already.
Right, yeah. Well, we've seen some of that already, but,
Yeah.
I didn't bring anything with me now. I mean, last time we were provided a lot of the copies that we had.
And normally you put them on the screen? Don't you?
No, we normally don't. No, but we can.
That way,
We can start doing that.
or you wouldn't have to,
Share the screen.
right, you just
Well,
can hook up.
that would prevent all the copies being, reproduced and Maybe that would be a good idea, no?
Yeah.
But we had a different group before, so it was kind of a routine already. We'll adapt. We can do that.
Sorry about that.
And,
I have mine on the screen. There's nobody sitting here. You're more than welcome. Do you have something there?
No, Bob's
Okay.
got some.
Yeah,
we can
we're
share.
gonna look at
Okay.
mine.
All right.
and I'll actually talk about the exact numbers. From fiscal year 25 to 26, last year to this year, our general fund revenues in total have gone from 17.2 million to 19.4 million. So that's a good outlook. A lot of that has to do with gross receipts revenue. You'll see an even bigger increase at the end of June. One thing that I do want to inform you is, the end of June, in a great part due to the gentleman behind me, Mr. Archuleta, you'll hear about that in a little while, we have a great influx of cash coming in because of our grant and capital outlay reimbursements that we've spent during the year. The final payments have to be submitted, the reimbursement requests, by the end of June, and we're getting some in even this week. In the last 3 days, we've gotten a little over $2.5 million. We're expecting another at least 3 million from capital outlay and other grants, 3.5 million from a grant with the state engineer's office. So they'll be considered receivables if they're not received today, but our cash balances will definitely go up in the next week. And those are primarily in water and some of the special revenue funds, some general fund also. But the outlook on general fund revenues is good and continues to be that way as you saw in the FY '27 interim budget. In the general fund,
Morris, the numbers you give us are on a cash basis, right?
correct.
You don't give us accrual information?
No,
Okay.
we are
so-
only on accrual for audit reporting.
Okay, all right. So I see why you're saying about the cash coming in. But in order for it to be on June's report, it has to arrive today?
Or
Or
before,
before?
yes,
Okay, all right.
yeah, that's correct. So you'll see a big spike in July for everything that we requested in June that didn't get here till after the 1st.
Got it, okay.
On the general fund expenditure side, as of May, we've only expended 77% in general, but our general fund spending has gone from 18.4 million to 22 million. Now, that is primarily because, well, of course, we have non-recurring costs, we buy equipment and things like that. But it's primarily due to the compensation increases for the fire department, police department, and the general employees. We do not have that for fiscal year '27. The bargaining agreements were signed for 2 years, so we won't have that issue in FY '27. FY '27, any budget increases in individual department or funds will be for equipment or building acquisition. But our salary should stay pretty close to the same. What's built in to the salaries also is the $1 per hour increase on anniversary dates. That will continue.
And may I, Morris, the budget for this point in the year was 26 million, but we only spent 22 million.
Through May, that's correct.
Why? Why, that seems like a lot of underspending at this point.
Yeah, it is, over budgeting and underspending.
How come?
That shows like a 4 million right there.
Well,
Yeah,
primarily, and I can't answer for every
Budget.
department, primarily, it's due to vacancies that have not been filled. I would say that accounts for 70% of that. And in other areas, it may be for projects that couldn't be completed in time. We have some equipment that was ordered and not yet delivered. But primarily, it's due to vacancies.
okay. And so in my mind, it's hard to make judgments from this report that we see because of that. And I understand the vacancy issue, Did the city rebudget at about the 6-month point to take into account the fact that there was probably gonna be underspending due to vacancies not being filled?
Only in some areas, not like we did last year.
Okay,
What we did this year was leave the savings. We have done some spending, but primarily, we left that money there to be designated for capital projects and equipment purchases in FY '27. You saw that in our general project fund, our capital outlay fund, where we hadn't been budgeting before. We included about $2.5 million extra in FY '27 that we're not going to spend in FY '26. So, but they're in designated funds for that.
Okay,
and that's in the budget we've already seen, right?
Yes,
You've put those in, are you gonna put any more in the final budget?
depends on our cash balances. We're going to look at everything. We've also asked the department heads if they have any additional requests or any additional budget. We're going to have another 43 million that we're going to get from the Water Trust Board through NMFA. That's going to be included. And anything else, the deadline for them to submit is the close of business this coming Monday. Anything that's reasonable or had not been planned or had not been foreseen in the interim budget will be included and come to you as part of the final budget.
Are there gonna be any, in the final budget for next year, will there be any reallocation of employee positions? Are you gonna get rid of any employee positions? Because I think both in fire department and police department, they chronically have the same positions unfilled every year.
The fire department is almost completely staffed.
Ah, okay.
They've done really well. The police department may have some of the same issues. They are redirecting some of their salaries. For example, what are they called? Open space officers. We're going to have open space officers now through salary savings that are redesignated for those two positions. So some of them are going to be redirected to other positions, and some of them will be frozen so that they're kept in place, but they're not funded.
okay.
And that's in police department, I believe community development also.
All right, thank you.
You said in your revenues in the general fund, that number was, are you saying that was 19 million?
I'm sorry?
19,431,000? And your
Yeah.
general, okay, but and then on your expenditures, you have 22.
Yes,
So did we not bring in, well, we spent more than what the revenues were for the year?
yes, we did budget some of the reserves. We budgeted the annual revenues plus some of the reserves for some of the projects. But we try not to
Why
budget
that seems like if it's-
recurring expenditures beyond recurring revenues. So the difference is non-recurring expenditures. Okay. In the enterprise funds, there remains a concern that I've talked about before, and that is a drop in water and wastewater revenues. We've determined that most of that comes from diminishing consumption. We're not selling as much water. Now, part of that, and we don't know what extent for which one, part of it is due to a survey that I think that was presented at one of the council meetings, the lack of faith in the quality of the water. That's one issue. Another issue is in the age of water meters. They run slower or they stop. It's always in the customer's favor, but it means revenue loss for the city. One of the grants that was obtained from the Water Trust Board is a meter replacement funding for water meters throughout the city. So that project will be added to the budget, and that project will get started this year. I'm not sure if it'll be completed within the year, but it will get started pretty quickly. Travis has already started on that a couple of months ago. So those two things are affecting revenues for water and wastewater. wastewater revenues are based on revenues that are collected in water. So one affects the other one. That remains a concern. Some of the reimbursements that we've gotten and are going to get are for the water fund. So that the cash balances there were a concern. They are going to see some relief from both FEMA reimbursement and from reimbursement from the state engineer and Water Trust Board. So although it's a,
This one's in the negative also, by the 2.7?
I'm sorry,
This one's in the negative. We're talking about the enterprise fund, right?
the water fund, we did transfer in the FY '27 budget, we're transferring, I think, $2.5 million from a FEMA reimbursement into the water fund. So yes, that cash balance was a concern.
Because I showed it in the negative, right?
Yes. And
So you're gonna fix this all before the year end, right?
before next year ends. The cash
How are
balances
you
now
gonna
are
show it,
okay.
how are you gonna show it in your audit then? Are you gonna show it in the negative like this?
Well, the water fund, there's 4 different pieces to it.
Okay.
Overall, they're in the black. The operating portion,
Because here it doesn't say it's in the black.
right, the operating portion is in the black. I mean, the overall portion is in the black. The operating portion, and as of today, that 1.685 million that we got just yesterday makes sure that we're gonna finish in the black for today. We will not have any negative cash balances today, that's not an option. So those have been,
You're gonna stay here till midnight in case you have to make sure you record everything, right?
right. We'll check the bank balance at 12:01.
So, just to summarize for me, Norris, the water fund shows a negative 1 million for this year so far.
After this year, you're looking at May.
Yeah, and that's gonna go away because of reimbursements
Yes,
from, where, FEMA?
FEMA and also the state engineer.
Oh, okay, all right.
And the state engineer just transferred 1.8 million yesterday. We may be getting more today, another 1.5 million. It may not happen till tomorrow, but we are in the black for the
Okay.
end of the fiscal year.
All right.
That's what we want.
That's the main thing, and you will see that,
Sure that it's in the black by
Yeah.
the end of today.
absolutely. You'll see that in the June report.
Okay.
We also transferred some money from the local government investment pool back to the city. And one thing that I might as well talk about now is I've been in discussion with the local banks. The interest rate that they may be able to offer is just a little bit above what we're getting at the local government investment pool. I've asked them to send me some quotes on that because we may be at the point, a year ago, we were almost a full percentage point apart.
Yeah.
Now we're within a tenth, and the banks, local banks may actually be paying above that. So we're gonna consider moving a lot more money back locally for 2 reasons. The local government investment pool, we can have money transferred in 24 to 48 hours. If it's already here, it's immediately available. And in the local banks, it's insured. And what they do is they break up our millions into smaller accounts. So we have 100% coverage through FDIC. So those are the 2 advantages of having it locally. And the third advantage that we never talk about here, and we should, is the economic machine that it creates by having more money to lend to local businesses. And that's a big deal. And, you know, we should have that discussion at some point.
What's the rate that the bank is giving?
Right now, about 3.7. Yeah.
And Morris, is that because you twisted arms?
No, not,
Or threatened to pull money out and to
I-
go put it somewhere else?
I wish I could control what happens at the state treasurer's office, but no, it's just,
No, I was
it's been
thinking
a
at the
trend.
bank. The banks are now raising the rates to us,
Well,
to the city of Las Vegas that keeps them in business.
Well, I think they see the carrot at the end of the stick.
They do? Okay, good.
I hope so.
I do too.
I hope so.
Okay.
So, one question, Morris, the money that's through the, state treasurer's office that we have there is not insured?
No, it's not
considered
insured.
It's not federally insured.
It's not insured at all. It's an investment. It's a very, very, very low-risk investment, but it is an investment. If the entire stock market crashed and all government bonds were completely devalued, we could lose a lot of money. But the state treasurer invests in low-risk, like government bonds, CDs, things that are government-related, so they're not necessarily insured, but they're very, very, very minimal risk.
Backed by the US government, yeah.
Right. So, I just want to report, that may come up at the next meeting. There's going to be a lot at the next meeting. In our lodgers tax fund, we've seen a big increase in spending in the last 2 years.
What about the recreation fund?
Oh, recreation. The recreation fund has seen, actually, reduction in some areas and increase in other areas, program areas. There's been turnover there. The programs are starting to get established, but we don't see the results on the revenue side yet. What has kept the recreation department in the black is some of the cash that has not been spent for the roof. Now, we didn't transfer that cash away, it's still there. You'll notice our revenues don't include that transfer anymore. Their expenditures are up because the rec center now has fully staffed and they operate 7 days a week again. So there's a lot more service, a lot more availability. They're even open 8 hours on Sunday, I think. They now close, I believe it's at 10 p.m. instead of 8. So that has resulted in an increase in expenditures. That's going to continue. I know that they're actively seeking other funding sources. They did find a sponsor for one of the, I think it was either the summer program or youth basketball, a corporate sponsor, and they're going to continue to do that. I think this sponsor was willing to start with $10,000 or $20,000. That hasn't been determined yet. But
And Morris, where, the roof, how much was that, the original transfer, 1.5 million?
transfer was for 1.5 million. Some has been spent on the design,
Yeah.
and
And where are we now on getting the roof fixed?
the purchase order has been issued to the contractor, and the contractor has ordered a lot of the materials, and I believe they're on site or they're being delivered daily. So that project is going to start in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. And do you know how long it's supposed to last?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. And, you know, now you mentioned that that may result in a drop in revenues because you're going to have to close part of the rec center for that. So that will impact at least the part where the courts and probably the exercise rooms are, not necessarily the pool. But there will be an impact on closing the rec center.
They're gonna shut down those parts while they're working on the roof?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I believe at least the basketball courts and racquetball courts, that section of the building.
Right.
And the lodgers tax fund, our revenues are still increasing, but at a lower rate. So we saw a sharp increase. Now we're starting to plateau a little bit. We saw major increases in expenditures this past year. That was necessary because lodgers tax is the only local fund that we collect that is subject to reversion to the state of New Mexico. If anything that's not spent in a 2-year period has to go to the state. During COVID, we couldn't spend anything because we couldn't have any events. So the state allowed us to carry over those funds that were collected during COVID and gave us a grace period to spend them. We've spent down below that level. The lodger's tax budget for next year, you'll notice, is a reduction, because what we're gonna try and do with lodger's tax is keep that 1 year in reserve and spend what we're projecting to collect, so that we don't have an issue with decreasing cash balances where we run out of money. But we'll adjust those every 6 months. So what they do now is they budget for the first 6 months of events, and they bring a mid-year budget adjustment like they did this past year. Based on the cash balances, that's how they budget for the second half of the year. So that's how lodger's tax has been working. And
And Morris, what is your estimate on where the income from lodger's tax is going into the future years? Is it gonna be about the same that we've had? Is there a small increase? Is there a small decrease? What do,
it's gonna be a slight increase this coming year, and
Okay.
then we're anticipating it may just flatten out unless there's an increase in the tax, or unless we add more hotels or motels. And there's a potential for one. It's been put on hold. They've stopped that project for now. So, I guess it's gonna depend on that. I don't see, one thing that we are pursuing is we're trying to figure out how to isolate and collect from Airbnbs and, other overnight places, I forgot what they're called, because they're not registered with us. However, they do allow online registration. So we're gonna, through those channels, we're gonna try and see who is registered here in the city, and then get them to register for the collection of lodger's tax. Because any short-term stay is subject to lodger's tax.
so there's no judicial, review needed? The Airbnbs must pay lodger's tax, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think anything less than a 30-day stay is considered a short-term stay.
Okay. And you're anticipating a small increase in lodger's tax revenue because we're gonna find some of those people and get them to start paying?
Yes.
Okay.
It may not be significant, but it will help.
Okay. All right.
Okay, and the cannabis fund, there's not a lot to report there. Last year, those funds were designated by the governing body primarily to assist the Parks Department in acquisition of equipment. One thing that they did authorize for this year well, both this year and next fiscal year that starts tomorrow, is they're funding the youth program, the Summer Youth Employment Program. And we ended up with 48 students. It's going to end up costing us about $100,000 for the 6 weeks that they're employed. That's coming from the cannabis fund.
How many students?
48 students at
48?
20 hours a week.
Oh, nice.
And they're placed all throughout the city. If you drive by the plaza, you'll see them helping get the park ready. In the,
And that's gonna be next year's expenses?
yes,
We won't see any of that this year?
no, because they
Okay.
don't get paid
Yeah,
till FY '27.
okay.
In the opioid fund, we got a small influx of revenue that we weren't expecting, but we don't have any activity in there. What we're doing in FY '27 is we're just going to budget the entire amount, and then we'll get direction from mayor and council as to how to spend it. But there is no plan for it. We're just going to budget it in advance so that when we get that direction, we can move quickly. Those funds are unrestricted. In the FEMA revenue account, this is where we have a lot of cash still. But I want to explain how this part is going to work to some of the newer members. When the emergency was declared and we had both the fire and the flood, the city negotiated an agreement with FEMA to send us $100 million in cash. The state took 2 million of that, which left us with 98 million. The 98 million is specific to building a new water treatment plant. We have other claims with FEMA. They are for reimbursement and other claims based on losses. This funding is designated for the water treatment plant. Now, the governor, the state, basically took over this funding through an intergovernmental agreement that was signed by the council last August. Now, what this agreement does was it gives the state of New Mexico control of that project. They are responsible to procure the engineers and contractors for the design and build of that new water treatment plant. However, we have the cash. The intergovernmental agreement was between FEMA and the city, separate from the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the state of New Mexico. So the way it works now is the state of New Mexico sends us invoices and justification of what they're going to spend every quarter. So for example, in the first quarter of 2026, January through March, we got an invoice for some design expenses that are going to be incurred, that were incurred and already paid, combined with some expenses that are going to be incurred in the second quarter. So we may have sent them 4.2 million, of which 3.5 was already expended, and 700,000 going to be expended reasonably and justified. So there's two pieces to it. We don't pay the contractors directly. We pay the state of New Mexico. So now, every quarter, we get an invoice for both expenses incurred in that quarter and some expenses to be incurred in the next quarter. So neither one of us suffers a burden or drain on cash. And they're reviewed both at NMED, at the city, and at DFA. So there are multiple levels of control there. And we've gotten to a point where we're satisfied with the documentation. We make sure that they comply with our audit trails and our audit needs. So we can follow a transaction from them requesting money to the dollars in that email, to the dollars paid by NMED to contractors, to checks that cleared DFA, to the state treasurer where the checks were cashed. So we do have a complete audit trail, even though we're not responsible for the project. We do have audit responsibility. And that will be part of our FY '27, probably '26 audit. The audit requirement isn't normally until funding is complete or the project is complete, which will not happen as of today, will happen at least partially in FY '27. But that's one thing that we're communicating with our auditors about is what will the scope be in regard to the FEMA funding? And they'll determine that based on whether the funding is a major program or not. It is, but does it fall under a separate rule? So I'll report those as we get more information from the auditors.
So Morris, what will we see on the AP listing as a result of what you just said? Are we gonna see a check made out by the city to where?
State of New Mexico, I think.
You won't see a check. They're all done by, excuse me, ACH,
Yeah.
and they're posted by journal entries.
We don't see the journal entries.
Yeah.
You'll see it in the FEMA fund as an expenditure.
As negative, as expenses, yeah.
Yes, as expenses, but you will not see, it won't be a check.
Okay. And, second question. The city got another 43 million for the water system?
Water Trust Board, yeah.
Not for the water system.
Oh,
It's-
for
it's-
what?
There's pieces for it.
I'm sorry,
There's-
what?
There's pieces to it. Part of it is water storage, part of it is distribution, and part of it is metering.
Got it, okay.
So
That's
it's
where the
not,
metering
it's
comes
not for the
right.
treatment plant itself. It's
Yeah.
separate from the 98 million.
Got it, okay.
And what we're gonna try and do is we're gonna try and coordinate the replacement of meters and lines in water. We wanna coordinate that with the gas department, because they also have meters and lines that need to be replaced. So we're gonna see if we can do one trench for both projects. And it can be done, we just have to determine, for example, what the distance between the water pipe and the gas pipe has to be. They can't be right on top of each other. So those are the things that we're looking at to make the most of our grant money.
Okay, thank you.
And I already talked about the cash and the local banks. I'll give you an update on that at our next meeting, even if it's a special meeting. That's all I have on the budget through May. When we do present the June report, it will be unreconciled, unclosed. That does not happen until around October, but we'll have preliminary numbers for you for June. And in August, we'll start reporting the July numbers for the new fiscal year. So that's all I have on the budget report, unless there's any specific questions, and you all can look, I don't know if you've looked over the payables listing. We usually have questions on that.
Any further questions
I-
on finance?
I have
You're good?
a bunch of payable questions, but I'm gonna defer except for one, if I could, okay?
So can we go on then to number 2 then, the
Yeah,
check
yeah,
report?
yeah.
So we're all good with it.
Page 45 has a $70,000 plus check to San Miguel County for the ambulance service.
Okay.
A couple quick questions on that. Is that a monthly check?
It's supposed to be.
Supposed
It's
to
not
be?
always.
Okay. And how does that work? We don't pay that until they bill us?
Correct. The county is responsible for paying the ambulance company. It is a collaborative agreement where we have an agreement with the county to share the cost of the ambulance,
Yes.
but they pay the ambulance service and we pay the county, our portion.
Yeah.
And then, my last question on that was that the city purchased 2 ambulances here recently, right?
Right.
And all the accoutrement to go with ambulance service, gurneys and stuff like that. Is it the intention of the city to start doing its own ambulance service at some point in the future?
It's the city's intent to definitely explore that in the near future. We do not have any timelines or definite dates for a transition. That is a lot more involved
Yeah,
than just buying ambulances.
yeah, I would
Because you
really,
have to go through
yes,
the
that is.
PRC and get their permission and,
Certifications and all of that.
Yeah.
go
yeah,
along.
there has to be a
And
transition.
insurance,
Yes,
because
yes,
I figure
and
that's gonna be a big nut.
so is the billing. You know, the ambulance
Oh,
service
yeah, I
is,
forgot about that.
it's not a revenue
Yeah.
generator. It can be a drain. So,
Is there any intention on the city's part to offer that service to the county?
I can't answer that.
That's never, I don't think it's been.
It's not a
explored.
finance question.
It hasn't even been thought of or anything?
No, I
Okay.
don't believe it's been explored.
Okay. All right,
And again, if you have any individual questions when you see this, email us, call us, we'll get you an answer.
I have a few, and I'll do that. I forgot this month that I should email you ahead of time. But I'll email, who do
Okay.
I send it to?
Anthony and
Chastity?
Chastity both?
Both? Okay.
I saw that there was a training down south for zoning officials.
Yeah.
Zoning. So did they get a certification for the training that they went to?
Yes, they did.
And so did they get any compensation, a pay increase for?
They normally get, for any certification related to the job, at least a 4%. Their director can recommend more than that,
Uh-huh.
but it's a minimum 4%.
Oh,
Furniture, I saw that there was a little bit of furniture being bought also. So do you have somebody that does take inventory and does a transfer, like, let's say the mayor got new furniture?
That's what
His
this
old
team has
furniture
been
went,
doing for the last 2 weeks.
his furniture
Yes.
went to somebody else's office. So is there a change card, something that, right,
Yes, they are tagged and tracked and depreciated.
all right. Those are my questions.
I just remembered I have one more real quick, Morris. General fund account, 1014210, what is that?
Ooh, that sounds like executive or the mayor, I'm not sure.
Elected official.
It's a governing body.
Governing body account.
Yeah.
So the governing body has money they can spend,
Yes.
okay.
Trainings and
Well,
they Yeah.
probably have like a line item, right?
Well, they have their own divisional budget, and it includes the salaries and other expenses for travel and things like that.
Right, okay.
Okay.
All right, are we done then with the AP check report?
Yes, I.
Yes, I think so.
You want,
I think I'm gonna give
I'll go on to
Robert
the
this chair.
presentation with, by Robert Archuleta.
Madam Chair, see if I can get my PowerPoint up, and then we'll get started.
Madam Chair, in the meantime, I thought it was a good idea that Robert presented for us. He does a lot of our grant writing and a lot of follows through with our grants from A to Z. And I wanted for him to explain the process to us and how that is, it ties to, of course, the finance department and so forth. So I wanted to, for him to share with the finance committee what we get done here with this. So
Well, I'm glad you did, because I just feel that that's a big department, and
it is,
I just wonder, does he do it all by himself? You know what I'm saying? Because you're looking at, he's applying for the money, and then,
and he's closing it out at the
and
end.
then, right,
You know,
what about the reimbursement? Okay, that's my
So-
biggest thing is, maybe he's real close with the accounts payable person that, helps him out, you know what I'm saying? To get all his, because who gets the invoices for you? Who tracks all that? You know what I'm saying?
And that's,
I hound them. Sometimes you have to hound the contractor, whoever it is, especially like for today. You have to have all your paperwork in. Invoices, paid, not just here, but paid.
right,
Yeah, so the
The
month
big
of June
part
is
of that
crucial. Don't be
funding
sick.
that
Be sick for the month of June.
Morris discussed, yeah. So, he's just gonna get this up, so I can go ahead and start if you don't mind, that way in the interest
Also,
of
tell
time.
us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me, and Marvin, thank you for inviting me. This is my first time presenting to the Finance Committee since the time I've been consulting on my own. I'm retired from government and also did 2 years at the labs and 1 summer at Sandia. So I'm pretty familiar with governmental processes going back several years. I decided to open up a consulting firm just so that I can really work on helping the community and just, try and stay close to home. So that's where I'm at. I have 3 boys. They're all working now. One's an electrician, one's in the Czech Republic right now with Highlands doing research, and another one's just got his master's. So having said that, I want to take you kind of on a journey from beginning of the process to the end and why we do certain things. So I'm going to kind of go briefly over the ICIP, then I'm going to talk about House Bill 247, which is really going to impact how entities like the counties and municipalities really have to work on their capital outlay because there's going to be some changes to that. And then talk about the legislative process, and then get into the capital outlay, and then talk about, past issues and maybe some recommendations to the city for some changes. So the ICIP was due today. We uploaded ours last week after we did our paperwork that needed to be uploaded, including a resolution to DFA. So, as you know, the ICIP is what's called the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan. That's kind of your 5-year plan, sort of Bible,
Right.
that sets priorities going in 5 years. This year was, go ahead,
Can I
Madam
touch
Chair.
on that? So do you, to get this plan, okay, so do you have like a committee? Do you update this plan once a year?
Yes, that's correct. So
So do you have like a committee that meets
what we do is I meet with all the staff,
directors and?
directors, on their needs. We meet with the governing body. We had a retreat at the United World College a couple months ago where we discussed a lot of those priorities.
Nice.
So, yeah, we
That has
do-
to be updated before you can even apply for any funding, correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
So we can amend the ICIP up until November 1st. The final publication is November 13th. And then it gets published on the DFA's website and to the Legislative Finance Council and others for review. The ICIP is not a funding document. It's a working document that kind of sets out priorities going out, again, 5 years. The changes that DFA made has made things a little bit easier for persons like myself who work on this stuff daily. They started a PARS and a CAPS project, which is the Project Accountability Reporting System and the Capital Project System. So all of our legislative grants are now in a database. You can look in that database, see what projects we have, how much funding we have, how much has been spent. You can look up notices of obligation that are in there. You can look up invoices that are in there and track your progress on a project.
So all that needs to be uploaded, all your information before you spend anything.
Yes,
And you have to
yes,
approve it prior, right?
yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Madam Chair, if I might ask, is Christine Moody still on?
I don't
do you
see
know?
her.
I,
Do you know if she's on IT? Do we still have Miss Ludi on? Yes. We do? Okay.
understand that she had her hand raised for
Oh, there you
some
are.
question. I don't know.
Do you have a question, Miss Ludi? We can't hear you. Ask to unmute. There you go.
There I go. Sorry about that. No, you answered. I was gonna ask a question about the furniture.
Oh,
and
yes.
and so I had that question. I also, if somebody can indulge me, I saw a lot on the senior center. Isn't that run by San Miguel County, or are we in partnership with them? Because I saw a lot of checks payable to them.
We are responsible for executing all the funding. And yes, we do have cooperative agreements with the county
Okay.
for the
Okay.
outlying centers.
Sorry about that. I couldn't get anybody's attention. Thank you. Thank you for the answers.
You can hear Robert though, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So setting the ICIP, we the city had to, of course, put in their top five priorities. And that's kind of required by the state, but it's also really subjective because sometimes you'll have other departments like DOT or the state engineers or NMED who want you to put projects in the ICIP. But the most important thing is try and get as many projects as you can in there going out. We have to rank them. This year's ICIP, we ranked last week. And again, the ICIP is not a funding application. It's not a capital outlay request. Those are done separately. and it's not a funding source, and it's not a wish list. I think sometimes in the past, we've worked really hard with the governing body to make sure that it's not a wish list and that it's more towards a priority, and it's not a guarantee of state funding. It's really important, and I want to say this from a budget perspective, if there's ever any available budget, is to always try and get a little bit more shovel-ready when you're doing projects. The fact that the city has done really well in trying to become more shovel-ready, to get more construction-ready documents has really helped the grant writing. Because it shows the funders that we have some work prior to asking for the funds, and it's really helped secure some of those funds. A good example of that would be like Rodriguez Park. We had a master plan, we had some construction documents, so we were able to secure funding for the lighting on 2 fields, the softball field. That's where I wrote the grant for the trail. We were able to get that trail, and then now we got the soccer field for $1 million. And then we're also getting ready to demolish the Little League field because we have construction-ready documents. So some of it has been grants, some of it has been capital outlay, some of it has been city funds. So together, combined, it has really made an impact on getting some of those projects done. So as a committee, keep that in mind, that sometimes it's really important to have some extra dollars for being, to plan and design. So I'm going to talk about House Bill 247, which was recently passed this last legislative session. That bill is going to create reauthorization limitations, which means that you can only reauthorize a project once, and it's only going to be a technical change, and then you have to have like 10% of your funds spent in order to get those technical changes done. Project.
Bad thing.
No, what it does is
There's a
just,
lot of
it
stuff
gets entities to really start on their projects.
Get serious, really, because I know we've run into problems in the past that I would see where I worked prior. People think that you could just reauthorize, oh no, let's just do the paperwork and change it.
Yeah.
To me, that would take like a year, when I would have to submit something, now we have to wait 1 year, a whole year before
Yes.
we can get that
Yes.
reauthorized. So I'm glad they did tighten up the belt on that one.
Yeah, and it's also going to create destination fund reversions. So, capital outlay comes from three sources: severance tax bonds, general obligation bonds, general fund. Each of those has their own IRS tax rules, things of that nature. So it's really important to start those projects because they can freeze accounts now. They can revert some of those funds. So it's really important to start those projects as soon as
As soon as
possible.
possible.
Okay, again, we're on the CAPS and PARS system. That's where a lot of our capital outlay projects reside. Some of those projects that are grant funded are not in PARS yet, but there's a transition into other state agencies where eventually that's going to happen. We have to do quarterly reports, legislative questionnaires. Those come to us prior to capital outlay being issued. We have to certify in those questionnaires that we are going to follow rules, regulations, IRS rules, et cetera, before we even accept the funding through a grant agreement. We have to do notices of obligation prior to spending any money. We've had issues in the past where a project went to quote before we even got a notice. So those things are going to talk about later on in my presentation. Requests for reimbursements, those are really important. Those are required through check stubs that have cleared the bank. For example, this, it's not just a copy of the check, but it also shows that it's actually gone through the bank. Those proofs of payment are really important to get reimbursement. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of work from departments and finance. Thank you, finance, for helping me, because I knock on their door sometimes and I'm like, oh, there's Robert again. He's looking for this or that. And then for the ICIP, it's really important to plan our projects accordingly, to be as shovel-ready as possible. And again, not create a wish list, but something a little bit more dynamic where you're kind of ready for a project to happen. And then, of course, we have to get it approved by the governing body through resolution. So capital outlay is really important, because you have to identify a need for your project. You have to have it planned and designed if at all possible. Sometimes you don't get planning money. It's important you get your legislative requests in on time, and prioritize those requests, because we're all fighting for the same dollar, right? There's 33 counties, 112 municipalities, there's the tribes, and we're all fighting for the same dollar. So it's really important to prioritize what exactly you're looking for when you go lobby for funding. So there's, the legislative process, all the things you need to go through a bill, the governor signs it, and I'm gonna get more into this, and there's questionnaires that we have to do.
On each project?
Yes, yes, project agreements, and then proper procurements, quarterly reports, and then request for reimbursement and closeout. That's kind of where I come in. So I start with the ICIP, I move into the questionnaires, I participate in some of the legislative stuff, and then we get started on the grant agreements. Okay, so legislative language is the most important thing when you're trying to get capital outlay, okay? So one example I put here is to plan, design, construct, furnish, and equip a new animal shelter in Las Vegas and San Miguel County. If I was to leave the word equip out of there and we got money, you wouldn't be able to you wouldn't be able to equip it with certain things. Or we forgot the word furnish, or furnish and equip, we wouldn't be able to put, certain things in there. So legislative language is extremely important when you're trying to plan. If you take the scope of work a little bit further, you plan and design, construct, furnish, and equip a new shelter to include electrical, plumbing, HVAC, lighting, foundation, restrooms, offices, blah, 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 blah. So that's where you get more into the meat of your request. So remember that language is everything. Infrastructure projects are 4 years. You have 4 years to spend the money, and equipment projects are 2 years. And the reversion dates are typically June 30th at the end of the fiscal year, which is today, ironically. So that House Bill 247 is going to change that. It's going to change that because it's going to speed up things. It's going to get entities to move quicker on their projects and speed things up a little bit. Okay, so the capital outlay process, the bill is drafted through Legislative Council. The House and Senate will become the sponsor, introduce the bill. It goes to assignment through House bill or Senate bill, and then memorials are typically just more investigation type of things that doesn't need to be signed by the governor. And then the bill is based on subject matter, so something like crime bill will go to judiciary, something like children will maybe go to human services, so it just depends, where those bills lie. So it's really important as a city to pay attention to who's on those committees, who's chairing them, et cetera, if you're going to lobby for funding. And then there's amendments and floor actions that need to take place in both houses before we even get any capital outlay. There has to be 3 readings, has to be passed by majority, et cetera. And if it can't be agreed upon, it goes back to committee. So the committee holds the strings, it has to be heard. And then, the capital outlay is signed into law. Once the bill is passed, it can be vetoed or overridden by 2/3 or pocket vetoed. I think the only project we had vetoed this past 4 or 5 years was a reauthorization that I tried to get last year, which I ended up getting successfully this year. I'll talk about that in a bit. So project management, the importance of my work starts with a notice of obligation. We have to have everything obligated with DFA or state engineer or whoever before the work starts. We have had instances in the past where they go to quote right away and we haven't had the no, and I've had to fix it and work with DFA on that.
You put the buggy before the horse.
Yes, exactly. So that's important. Proper procurement is important. Your 3 quotes, your RFPs, if you're going to use statewide price agreement or CES. Keep in mind as a committee that CES charges a 1.25% fee. That cannot be paid with capital outlay. You
Yes,
cannot
back
embed
that
it
out.
into that cost, yes.
They do.
So that's really important. It's important to be watchful of change orders. That can become an issue, especially when you find either hidden costs or, you get an entity contractor that maybe knew about it but didn't put it in till later. So those are important in your pre-construction meetings. They're important to talk about ahead of time to avoid them if at all possible. Oversight mechanisms are important. I still do a lot of project management, but there's others, there's your staff, your directors, your architects, and your engineers, and your inspectors. That's really important to make sure that those projects have some oversight.
Robert, and who talks with them? Who has the knowledge here at the city to talk with your architect, to talk with your engineers when they have questions? Who's that go-to person here? Because I don't know, do you have a project manager here?
Yeah, I mean, there's some that reside like in utilities and also in public works. So typically, it's the directors and they're the step right under the director, myself, or it'll be the architects or the engineers. Usually, a lot of the inspection and the oversight of the project is built within the contract of those engineers. And so, for example, Old City Hall that's getting roofed right now, the payment of the contractor will not be approved until the architect makes sure that they did what they're supposed to.
And who's funding that project?
The DFA,
DFA is?
DFA, Quality of Life Grant that we wrote, and it's
How much was that allocation?
320,000. And then the city did add a little bit of
Difference?
funds to make sure the project got done.
Robert, I have a couple quick questions. You're an independent contractor, right?
That's correct.
You're not an employee of the city of Las Vegas.
That's correct.
Why?
Why? Because I'm retired from state government.
Oh, I see. Okay.
At the city, who manages your contract?
The administration,
Who do you answer to?
There's nobody, no person?
city manager and mayor.
Okay.
If you had a question, he's the one you go to.
Okay.
Well, to get like payments signed, requests for reimbursement, things that need to get signature, it goes to city manager.
And so the city manager signs off on your invoices to the city so that you get paid?
Yes, I
Turn them into the city manager's
Okay.
office.
And he signs it.
Do you do any other grant writing besides the capital outlay stuff?
Yes.
Okay, maybe we can ask questions about that later, but go ahead.
Well, are you talking about like independently through my own company or through?
I am very focused. My wife is sitting behind you, Robert. And she's on the library board, and the library in Las Vegas needs some fixing up. And my guess is that the city's not gonna pony up that money for it. And because it's a very historic library, it's a Carnegie library, that there might be grant money that could be obtained to fix up the library. Have you looked at the windows in the library last time you were there? They're terrible. But, so that's why I'm heading down that route, is that, would you be involved in writing a grant to do something like that?
Historically, but energy inefficient.
Yeah. Yes, and answer your question, yes. I do research other grants from different departments. Like right now, I'm looking for gas meter monies
Okay.
as well.
All right.
So yes, it answers your
Right.
question.
We can talk about that later then, but
Go ahead. Okay.
thank you.
He's gonna be your go-to man.
So moving on, the final reporting is really important as we do our final reports. A lot of those happen these last three weeks in our financial closeout. And as Morris pointed out earlier, well, we did do a lot of work to get a lot of this money back into our budget to replenish the budget. So again, severance tax bonds, general obligation bonds, and general funds are where we usually get our funding from. Sometimes we get junior bills. We got a junior bill last year for the animal shelter, was 200,000. And so we did some work there, and we also bought some equipment and had some events. So some of the issues that I've dealt with in consulting has been like, starting a project before the grant is signed. Not necessarily like starting it, but like wanting to
Right.
move on it. Yeah, and it's like, okay, hold on, we need to get grant agreement, we need to get a bar in the city council, we need to do certain things. So just keep that in mind. Starting a project before a budget adjustment is done with the governing body. Like, there's excitement around projects and you're gonna do great things in your community, but then, people wanna move quickly, but their government is process. So it's really important just to hold the brakes until the governing body accepts certain things. Again, starting a procurement before the grant agreement is signed, like they know they're gonna get X amount of money, but the procurement is like, oh, well, let's go to quote right away. We should, because it's always contingent upon funding availability. Go and start something and incur costs, and then you say, oh, well, by the way, the grant's no longer, you're done, so you're gonna incur these costs. And then there's always the potential for contracts, knowing about a potential contract ahead of time. It's really important to try and keep that to a minimum. I know that sometimes some of these fundings is public record, but for your procurement process, it's really important to keep that internal as much as
So it's
possible.
important that you meet with the manager, right? City manager.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, is he the one that says you're going to move forward on whatever project it is? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Need to call you in first,
Yes.
Once you guys have that,
Yeah, we have those conversations.
yes.
And with
You probably
departments.
have to meet with
Yeah.
them constantly. 'Cause it's
What I'm
awful
outlining
to always be
here,
the tail of the dog, And
Yes.
sometimes we feel that way.
yeah.
They're telling you last when they should have told you first, you know what I mean?
Right. So we're really just kind of mentioning the things that are really important to make this process more desirable towards completing it in a manner that is conducive to being in compliance with requirements. And of course, you have your procurement process to follow a cost-effective products and services through competitive, open, and transparent processes. That's the most important thing. And then there's governing principles, there's a procurement code, the Purchasing Act, Government Conduct Act. The Code of Federal Regulations is really important because sometimes a lot of this money is pass-through money. It's federal money that passes through the state, so you're still subject to federal and state guidelines. And that gets a little bit more intense because you have to follow a lot of different covenants. Again, I mentioned that everything is process. It's important to execute those grant agreements, submit your notices of obligation, encumber funds as soon as it's appropriated and budgeted. Morris and his staff do a great job of meeting with me every year to make sure that all these projects have their own different line items separate from other colors of money and make sure that they're used for their intended purposes. Providing timely updates, the CAPS and PAR system now requires you to be really on time with your reporting. Case management is important. We have to keep things for 6 years, so that's really important to keep track of everything that you've done. To evaluate your projects, because they're asking questions now on PARs and CAPS. It says, what is the team up to now? Where are you on this project? Whereas before it was kind of open-ended. It's important to, identify problems and seek solutions, because sometimes we all know that we don't always get the dollar amount that we need to finish a project. So you have to get creative, and sometimes that involves adding additional monies from different areas. Paying vendors promptly and submitting requests for reimbursement on time is extremely important. It's important to pay these vendors as soon as they're done with their plan and design or whatever. get them paid and get that documentation back as soon as possible. And again, making sure you're cautious with change orders, and that we have well-developed and accountable scopes of work. I've seen scopes of work that are very general in nature, and they kind of leave it open-ended for contractors or whatever. These scopes of work really need to start with action verbs, you know, implement, design, you know, be a little bit more specific with scopes of work.
Do
That's
you,
extremely important.
do you get a copy of each purchase order?
Yes,
All these?
Yes.
Have them in your file, I mean,
yes.
because I don't think you have an accounts payable person just to pay all your federal programs and your legislative appropriations and so forth, right?
Yes, I get copies of
But
purchase
they,
orders.
right, they give you a copy.
Yes.
So,
And then, for again, for equipment, our 2-year projects, it's important just to order that equipment right away, especially if you need it from a department.
And then
Again, follow the legislative language. It's extremely important to avoid any misappropriation or a gray area that may arise because you didn't really follow the legislative language. Again, follow legislative language, don't circumvent the notice of obligation process, keep up with reporting and quarterly reports, create positive relationship with funders. That's important because they want to know about your projects. It's not just the paperwork. They want to know, hey, why are you doing this? Or like for example, when they funded the lighting grant at Rodriguez Park, they were okay with it because some of those fields were already existing. But to expand, I had to go out and get an archaeological survey to make sure that no other sites were going to be impacted or anything. So I had to follow that process, and that led to bigger things like the soccer field. Those relationships are really important, to talk to those people and stay in touch with them. Because they want to fund communities, but they want to fund communities that are shovel-ready, that are prepared, that are planned and designed.
they don't want people to go with them with a concept that says, oh, we need to do this project, or do you have land? No. Or do you have this? No. So they want you to
Be really prepared on what you're going to do. Again, paying vendors on time and accordingly is important, and then tracking the processes through file maintenance and good case management. So I drag everything to electronic file and then also keep a hard file. Just that way I can refer to it. So these are all the active projects that I sort of deal with alongside with the administration and the departments. A lot of these have been closed. We still have an appropriation for new City Hall. Old City Hall, we had $200,000 left. That's getting closed out now with the roof. We had 2 communications grants where we went from digital analog to digital. Those are closed out. Lincoln Park is closed out. We still have a $50,000 appropriation for Peterson Dam. We're trying to figure out what we can use that money for, because that's a $40 million project, right? Energy and Minerals, that lighting grant is done. We just closed out a Clean and Beautiful grant. The junior bill got closed out. Veterans Park is pending because that one's in plan design. We have 2 appropriations for Creston Park. Those are going to be, I think, more improvements and I think something with the veterans. Rodriguez Park, we're getting ready to demolish the Little League field and build a new one. That's getting the construction documents any day for that. We're still working on the animal shelter design for the big shelter. 8th Street Extension, we had $100,000 for the 8th Street Extension water line expansion, but that project was going to be about 1.5 million or even more now. So that ended up going to Water Trust, which we got approved for, and then the 100K I reauthorized to water meters. So they can use that for plan and design, and then the money they get from NMFA can go towards the construction of those water meters. Great Blocks on Railroad, that's done. They were just paving last week and finishing up. That was two appropriations of 1.2 and 900,000. So that's where you have to get creative because those are two different grants and two different fiscal years. And then the trail at Rodriguez got closed out, and then we have an appropriation for the Plaza Park to do some improvements there. And then Carnegie Library got closed out. And then we have all the Water Trust Board, 43 million for tanks, for water lines, for wastewater, and for water lines. So all that is getting there.
Robert,
And all those have a reversion date on them, right?
They all would
You
have a
can see all
reversion.
those allocations that you just posted on the website of either the legislative or the capital outlay, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask if, Robert, can you share that information with the council, maybe at one of the council meetings? It's good to see it up so that the public, the general public can see what we're doing, what's been put together, what you put together, and what jobs are really getting done. That's good information to have to the general public, I think.
Yeah, if you just notify Manager Naya and I'll get me on the agenda and then I'll come and.
If you have a copy of that, I'd like to share that with them too, you know what I mean? I could.
Okay.
Could you go back to
To that one, please. So, just to help me out here, cap out is capital outlay, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then the other ones are grants? Did
Yes.
you write the grant proposal for those that are listed as grants?
Yes, sometimes I write them all, sometimes I co-write them with the engineering firm. And then sometimes I write them and then the engineering firm will package them with their cost estimates. So it's a little bit of collaboration.
Do you ever
Go
go
out there looking for grant money for a particular project? Because
Yes.
there's money all over the place, I think.
Yes, I mean, grant writing is hard. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah,
It requires a lot. It's like doing a thesis every time you gonna turn something in, it's a lot of work. So, if we had 5 more grant writers, the city would probably have a lot more money, but then you get into project management. Do you have the capacity to administer those projects? So it's
Balance.
Got it.
I have
Thank you.
another question. How long do you intend to want to work for the city of Las Vegas?
well, I still have my contract for 2 years.
Great. Just because you're retired and you could at any time say, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's just a big part of, training someone else. Not that we want you to leave, no. But, whenever you do feel like, I think I'm done. I think I want to go fishing, you know what I'm saying? Where would that leave the city,
Well, I mean, it's important to have someone
Continuity.
Yes.
to administer things. The next slide,
Slide is the Department of Homeland Security Emergency Management generators. We put 3 backup generators at wastewater, 1 in each fire station. The old city hall is considered a fire station, so 1 was placed there. We're going to do one now at the rec center. That one's really important in the event of a catastrophic flood or something, that it can be used as a command center or a shelter. And then there's others, there's Taylor Wells, there's Valencia Lift Station, this city hall, senior center, possibly water treatment if the backup doesn't fall under their whole plan and design, and then water tanks in the airport. And so I'm working with the Department of Homeland Security on those. Those are a little rough to deal with because it involves a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy. But they're very gracious and they work with the city really well.
Taylor Wells belongs to the city?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So our new projects for this year, this last capital outlay session is we got $125,000 for animal shelter. That'll probably go towards the big project. $25,000 went to IT. Old City Hall got $25,000. That could probably be used for plan and design. So what's gonna happen with Old City Hall next is once it's roofed, Then I have the state coming in to clean the asbestos and lead-based paint. Once that's completed at the state's cost, not the city's cost, then it can go to a plan and design as to what you want to use the building for.
So the asbestos, they'll pick up the tab on it?
Yes.
Oh.
It'll be around 380,000.
Oh my God, I was gonna say 60.
Yeah. And then, I just started talking with them about potentially funding changes to the windows because they contain lead-based paint as well. So all those decisions are gonna need to be made collectively with the State Historic Preservation Office.
What are you guys gonna do with it, you haven't decided?
Well, yeah, there's been some talk about it, Mr. Chairman, and there's,
That's awesome.
we've got some decisions to make moving forward with 8 counselors and, you know, so we're tossing some ideas around at this point.
Be nice to see it finished. I hope I live to see it finished.
I've been working on that project like 7 years. We just got a RAID grant for 20,000. That's gonna be for recycle bins for aluminum, steel, and copper. They'll be placed at solid waste. We got a Clean and Beautiful grant recently for 8,000. That'll be another Riverwalk cleanup and also paint the bridge on Bridge Street back to like a more historical color. And then I have an animal shelter grant pending with DFA now. It hasn't been announced yet, hoping to get that. And again, I'm searching for gas meter funding so we can coincide that project with water meters. And then, of course, working on the generator project. So in closing, I just wanna reiterate that it's important to keep our documents for 6 years. It's important to make sure that we're following state and federal guidelines whenever we get pass-through funding. You know, you're gonna have things in there that like Clean Air Act and Hatch Act and Buy America Act and all these things that are in your covenants. So it's really important to read those agreements. Conflicts of interest, things like that. You know, 750,000 threshold, you're gonna get audited by the feds. So things like that. So really, for me, the most important thing is to get my documentation from departments, proofs of payments, invoices, things that I need to get our reimbursements back. Again, I covered the CES fee. That doesn't come out of capital outlay. That has to come out of your budget. And then again, just strengthen our scopes of work is really important when we issue RFPs. Your RFP and your request for quote becomes your scope of work. And if it's loose on the front end, then there's gonna be gray areas in the back end. So it's really important to be as descriptive as possible as to what you wanna
The
fund.
beginning of the whole,
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the issues that we encounter, and I don't know if Morris wants to join me in on this part, but the Tyler system sometimes commingles payments to vendors. And that has been a challenge when we try and reconcile with the state, with DFA, or with, you know, different departments. So for example, for the Clean and Beautiful grant, the staff had ordered the line item of $5,000 worth of supplies, but they ordered more and the check was for $7,500. So I spent like 3 days just trying to get that all reconciled for Clean and Beautiful, which, you know.
you would have been better off just making 2 purchase orders.
Exactly, yeah, well,
$5,000, okay? And then the difference for the whatever. the 20.
ideally,
You know what I'm saying?
ideally, that's the
Can you tell I've been
case.
down that road before?
Yeah.
And actually, Madam Chair, that happens. What circumvents that is the efficiency of the Tyler system in processing the payments. It'll take payments from all purchase orders from all departments and efficiently create one check. And what Robert's referring to
Yes,
is we have to.
That's another thing.
We have
It
to
by
undo
itself.
it.
Your accounts payable person, there should be a button in there that you can click that you want it, a separate check for it. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's exactly.
Because let's say it was CDWG, okay, but you had 3 or 4 purchase orders tied to it, you know what I'm saying? So it's gonna throw in whatever the allocation was for the beautiful grant, whatever, And then it's gonna have all these other ones, and they are getting paid of different line items, but it creates that one, just one
Right,
check.
so we need to find a workaround for that.
Just put that you just want that one check for his, but you gotta stay on top of the accounts payable person to catch it for you. Do you know what I'm saying? Say, don't include it with other, POs, you know?
The accounts payable person needs to be informed to do that.
Well-
Because they're not gonna be familiar with all the grants.
Yeah,
The
you
pay
need to be
request
like
is when it
real
needs to be
tight with your
isolated.
AP person.
Well, those originate from the departments. I get them after the fact
Right.
also.
Yeah, but when she's gonna pay it,
Yeah,
sometimes I don't know, it doesn't run through you because you're not the one that signs off on the receiving, right? You don't sign off on it, you don't know. You don't even know that it's gonna be paid then, right?
Right.
It never runs through your desk.
I
You need your own
ideally,
person, do you guys have any money to give him his own accounts payable person?
No,
No?
no.
Because you keep it all separate, you know what I'm saying?
But-
That person just works with him.
Madam Chair, sometimes it's a little difficult when you're trying to finish a project from multiple funding sources too. So, like the Rodriguez Lighting Grant, that was a grant of 217,000 plus a match, plus a little bit of extra city funds. So
Then what?
it's really important to
read all that.
delineate what exactly you're using that funding for on your purchase order and have your correct line items and stuff. But in closing, I think the city does a wonderful job in spending their funding. We don't have audit issues on our capital outlay. Our audits are good.
But just get the reimbursement paid.
But you just.
They're the ones that.
Sometimes we are at the last 11th hour trying to close out a project, but it happens. We've had floods, we've had a lot of things that have really impacted the operations. But the city is, we get complaints at the state level from the LFC that entities aren't spending their monies and,
I don't
If you
think,
go into those websites, have you seen how many pages there are for like the capital outlay? You just pointed out the few that are here.
yeah.
But like, let's say you just wanted to look it up to see what number, because it gives you a number, right? There's so many in there. And then you see it on the news where the governor's saying, we have $1 billion tied up in capital outlay. And it goes through my mind thinking when I go into the website, when I used to go into the website to see all the projects. And I'd say, well, no wonder, because they're all in there. People don't, they go and they give them all the government entities an allocation, and then they stay like 3 years to finally work on it. And it's.
Madam Chair, that, it's also subjective because sometimes local communities lack contractors, engineers. A lot of those people want to work on the bigger projects, I-25, interchange, things like that. So it's subjective too, but I think the city does a great job of spending their capital outlay. I think you can see it throughout the city with a lot of projects.
but with that,
I'll stand for any questions before we close.
Madam Chair, I have a couple of questions. Robert, how do you bill the city for your work?
how do I bill them?
Yes.
Hourly.
So you're
So-
turning your hours basically, okay, do any of these grants, can they be written in with the ability to pay you, the consultant?
It's just embedded into my hourly rate. So if I spend 10 hours writing a grant, I bill 10 hours.
But what you're saying is can.
The grant fee for services?
Yes, and I don't think so.
No, that's considered administration. And if it normally, if
They had indirect cost in.
some programs
Good.
allow for that, the city doesn't have any of those. They're mainly for capital outlay equipment and specific brick and mortar, I guess.
Right.
In answer to your question, Counselor Martinez, the state DFA has now pushed entities like City of Las Vegas to start charging for administrative costs if they're involved in a federal grant. So in the future, I think that's an option. The generator projects, they do allow a small percentage for like case management, things like that. Well, we haven't billed any of those out yet we've paid out the contractor, but we haven't billed DHSCM yet, but it is a possibility. But if it's straight up like a small grant, sometimes they just don't even allow it if it's state funds.
And Counselor, to further answer your question, in regard to federal funding, I think Highlands is a perfect model for that because they have so much, because they're a research institute also. They negotiate an administrative cost rate. I think it's every 3 years, and it's anywhere between 8% and 25%. And it's built into almost all of the federal grants, except maybe financial aid, and Highlands does include in their employment agreements an allowance for administrative costs from if you obtain a grant or you're executing a grant, especially research grants, where they allow administrative costs to be paid directly to the person responsible for that grant. We're not there yet, but it is allowable.
Good.
Sure, if I can. Mr. Archuleta, thank you for your presentation. I know it's a lot of work that you do. From Highlands, speaking of Highlands, I'm kind of involved in the capital outlay process there. I work in facilities, so I'm part of the project oversight for a lot of the projects we do. But I'm just kind of curious, when these projects get submitted through, your ICIP and head to capital outlay for requests, who lobbies on behalf of the city for funding?
Usually, my experience has
Been like the mayor and governing body. I'm not sure they've hired a lobbyist in the past. I think they might have hired maybe one, I don't recall. But it's usually governing body or the staff, they'll go talk to different departments.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. I don't know if that's something the city would want to look forward in the future.
I think that ability is always an option. I think we would, we'd probably want to look at that. They probably have paid lobbyists in the past to do work like that. I don't think we currently have anybody right now that does it, other than city manager, mayor, and, the governing body to be able to go out there and do that. It seems like there's a lot going on.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, lobbying takes a lot of work because it's not only just during the session, right? It's in the interim where a lot of the relationships are built and a lot of what's baked in the budget is already.
Your biggest, the biggest one that you guys received was probably for the Rodriguez Park, right? That was your biggest allocation that was given recently.
Madam Chair and
Member Rivera, you also have to register as a lobbyist. So that person needs to be registered, you gotta do certain reporting requirements and.
that's very specialized.
It's a niche,
Yeah.
yeah. Another question, if I can, I think from the city's perspective, I know Highlands, we recently just started this, so in years past in the facilities department, or my boss, my director at the time, handled all the capital outlay, all the project management, all the reporting, all attending. It's different for the city, but at Highlands, if we have a project over $300,000, we have to go to HED for approval. It's over $750, we have to go to DFA. There's a bunch of, or State Board of Finance, there's a bunch of layers that are broken down into it. Most recently, we have a capital projects and project manager position at the university that's taking a lot of this.
Right, that's why I asked him too. Who does he,
It's a
who's your
lot of
project
work. I
manager?
gotta respect you, because that is not,
Yes.
it is not
Who
it is
answers
not
engineer
easy.
questions?
100%, because we have projects that are road
Architects.
projects.
Architects.
We have a big $4 million HVAC project coming up. It's very broad. And so I just want to appreciate the work that you're doing for the city, because I feel like that kind of niche position is very hard to come by, and having the historical knowledge is what really
Right.
gets the city along, I guess.
Well, based on all the information that I've even heard today, and I've heard your presentation even before, Robert, and I just want to make sure moving forward that we have a good line of communication with you and the departments that you work with at the city, and of course, finance, city manager. I know we have Jimmy Size, that's one of the project kind of liaisons. nevertheless, I think it's good practice to make sure that we have that line of communication and that, partnership, along with, you know, you being one of our consultants, but that partnership moving forward to take these projects from A to Z. And you've done it, and you've done a lot of it, the majority of it on your own, and that's great. You know, like, Mr. Rivera mentioned, but, I want to make sure that when you're in need of something, that you get it, that you receive what you need, and there's no holding back, especially when there's deadlines, you know, involving, you know, to close a project. So, I also, along with, you know, Mr. Rivera, am pleased to have you here at the city, and I would like to have that working relationship moving forward, and I'm happy that you have a contract with the city moving forward, of course. Let's see how it, you know, we can make things better down the road. That's why I had asked the questions on how you get paid. Do you bill monthly? You know, those kind of things are important to me, so that relationship remains good and always open for improvement, I guess I should always say so. But again, thank you for the presentation. Every time I listen, I pick up something different, and I am much appreciative of that.
Thank you.
One last question, if I could. Mr. Archuleta, do you have any problems that you that you run into with project management? Just curious, like timelines or time management with the growing number of projects that the city has?
I mean, Mr. Chair, Member Rivera, I think there'll always be variables. Like for example, you know, a couple of years ago, we had that cascading flood event. That took a lot of time away from projects because we had emergencies, you know. I think there'll always be variables. You know, we don't have pavement plants here, you know. We have to bring pavement from somewhere else. Those are variables. I think it's important to make sure that when you have scopes of work and you're developing your contracts with contractors, that you really emphasize on time and on budget as best as you can and try and avoid change orders. Those are some of the variables that.
Because who's the one that does the approval? You know, because there's this allocation, you already have a PO set out. All of a sudden, your engineer says, no, guess what? I'm gonna need about another 100,000, you know. Who's he telling that to? You know what I'm saying? So are you just saying he's telling that to the director, you know, in that department? I don't know, let's say it was in the utility department, you know.
It's very important to be very clear with your engineers, your architects, and your subject matter experts. To
Unforeseen,
say, hey,
it's unforeseen, you know.
yeah,
Just
let's try and avoid.
So now they're looking for the person with money, you know what I'm saying? They're coming hounding, hey, who could, you know, is gonna fund this 100,000 to finish it, you know? Those are your unforeseen, and I don't think that.
So even to answer what you just mentioned there, like contractor that does the asphalt paving and so forth, there is a company that's starting to do that currently, no? And I believe it's Magnum has started to do that now. So kind of feels like a lot of these pieces are kind of falling into place. Maybe the projects will get done more on a timely basis within the scope of, you know, the year that you have or the time frame that project requires. So I'm happy to see those things moving forward, making sure that that we can do local, take care of it locally if need be. And of course, there's other, you know, you've got to go out, you know, through procurement, and it's got a process that you follow. But I'm glad to see that somebody else is doing it within our community that can be, you know, a bidder.
That's really important, especially around paving when you're trying to get your inspection passed on temperatures and things like that. So it's really good to have a plan.
You don't have to travel long distances and cool that pavement down. For example.
Well, in closing, I just want to add this, if we can be of some support, I mean, myself as a city councilman and of course, maybe even finance, we could be of some support to I can't guarantee a position, of course, I can't do that, and I know that, Morris basically said there's no money in the budget to do, an individual to assist and help you. Maybe down the road we can, I don't know, but all I could say is, those are things that I look forward to, making sure that we fill those voids and those gaps so that we can make it a better process, of course.
Thank you. Final questions, Madam Chair?
I just think you do a lot. It's a big job. And just, whenever you think that you don't want to do this, and that's the only thing that concerns me, is that, somebody has to know what you do. You know what I'm saying? Because that's a lot. That is a lot, If you got sick, not that I want you to get sick.
Yeah.
But I'm just, no.
That's
Yeah,
pretty-
because you know what I'm saying? You're the only person that's in your kitchen, that knows where everything is.
I just want to thank finance and all the departments, directors and their staff and administration. They've been very helpful in getting what I need. I know sometimes I go knocking on doors, but I have to, so that we get our funding back into our budget and that we meet compliance with reversion dates. So
I appreciate that.
Good job, Robert. I commend you. Thank you. For being a one-man show.
And Morris, I would recommend one more thing, that you have Dinah sit next to your AP person and show them where that button is for separate checks for payments, because it sounds like that might
They nitpick.
relieve a fair amount of
Well,
problems.
they nitpick.
Yeah.
To me, I think that's nitpicking, you know what I'm saying? Whoever's approving the request for reimbursement, but that's out of our control. We're gonna do whatever they ask from us because we want it paid. That's the goal, just to get it paid, whatever
Madam
it is.
Chair,
I think for the most part, like most departments, like DFA, for example, they're okay with it. We just have to demonstrate how it was divided. But that's a lot of work. It takes some time to.
reconcile some of those things.
Well, that person that's doing your AP, I don't know how long she's been there, but if she's running into this with you and she's done it already once, let's say you've already had that issue with her. When she knows she's paying something of yours, I'm sure that she's smart enough to go and say, she go knock on your door and say, Robert, can I pay this by itself? You know what I'm saying? So that we don't have to be stuck working together for 2 hours trying to figure it out, right? Yeah, historical data, it always stays in here. It doesn't go away. But anyways,
Does Christine have any,
Miss Ludi,
I don't know if she's still on or not.
are you still on, Miss Ludi? Where is she? You good? Do you have any questions on Robert's presentation? You're good? Ask to unmute.
Okay, I just have one, and that's on the legislative part of saying on the lobbyist. Your legislators really like when those ones that are involved in asking for capital outlay money are the ones that are presenting their what they're wanting to achieve. They always want to see those people involved, not so much a lobbyist, because they probably think a lobbyist is not really there, is there just to present, not to really advocate for their municipality, their schools, they want to see those people that are asking for that money. And to me, because we do a lot of that, as you know, I'm on the school board, we do a lot of that. We advocate a lot to not only our representatives, but to other legislatures from outside of our area, and ask for those capital outlay funds. So it's important that they see those faces. That's all I've got to say on that.
Good job. Thank you, Miss Ludi.
Thank you.
Do we want to wrap it up with Mr. Archuleta?
Well,
Mr. Madrid?
I only have one more thing, and it's a bit of homework for you all. We will be having a special meeting for the final budget approval. And at that meeting, I'm only going to highlight what's different between interim and final. Could be significant, but I won't go over the whole thing again, we've been through that. I will go through the changes. But one thing that I'd also like to cover at that meeting is, for your consideration, is do we want to meet monthly, quarterly? We want to have a meeting to set goals and objectives. What are the priorities? Is it budget management? Is it investment? Is it cash? I'm looking at Mr. Witters and his mind is going 100 miles an hour. And let's set some priorities for the next few months at least. And I know that some of you are newer. If you have some new ideas for reporting format, budget versus actual, we do the last year of history compared to this year. Do we want to look at cash? What do you all want to see? And how is that, how can we be better at that? And what do you want us to send you in advance? Things like that. Let's just put everything on the table and talk about what's important. That way we have some guidance to make these meetings a little more efficient. That was all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay. So we don't need to approve the discussion items, or do those need a?
No, none of them
Discussion.
need approval. They were all just for your information.
Okay, so let's go on to next meeting, the third week of July.
We don't have a meeting date for that yet because your special meeting will be a few days before the special council meeting. That date hasn't been determined. Once we determine that date, then I'll coordinate with you to set the date for the special meeting for the Finance Committee.
Okay.
And the special purpose of that will be for final budget.
All right then, so we're gonna wait on that. Okay, adjournment. Do we-
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. You did excellent. You do a lot of work.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good. How do I get out of this? No.